Welcome, folks, to my policy discussion series, which I call, for a lack of a better phrase or term, is what I would do if I were South African president. Obviously, that's way too long and like to put in a title. Yeah, so YouTube titles, thumbnails have limited capacity, so I can't put that. But you have to watch episode 12, 30, oh, excuse me, episode 112, 113, 114, 115 to get the context of everything that I am talking about in this series. I talked, at episode 115 about the crisis of the water infrastructure in South Africa, where I showed evidence of cities in dire straits when it comes to water infrastructure. And I did say that reasons why these cities have this problem is because these cities are very old. Obviously, that's not the full story. They are very old. Being old does not justify the lack of maintenance. And as you know, that maintenance has a expiration date when it comes to equipment or assets. Eventually, every asset class has a lifespan and it has to be replaced at the end of its lifespan, design lifespan, that is to speak in engineering terms. And the CEO of Johannesburg Water has already said that 60% of the system in the Johannesburg Metro has passed its engineering design lifespan. This is a serious crisis. Obviously, this requires a heavy infrastructure spend on both on the city of Johannesburg and the province and the national government, and that will include all of the other cities and small towns who have this problem. And they would also require some assistance from their respective provinces and the national government. And I did say that to fix the water infrastructure for Johannesburg and Pretoria and Durban, excluding Cape Town, because Cape Town system seemingly has been maintained properly by the Democratic Alliance, I would say we need 70 billion rands. And with regards to the Democratic Alliance, I do endorse voting for the Democratic Alliance when it comes to local government. Local government only. I do not endorse voting for them for anything else outside of local government. Because the things that are needed to run a city and the things that are needed to run a province and to run a country are two different kinds of competencies. But they have shown time after time that they have the requisite expertise needed to govern a seat. So I would say vote for them without even blinking when it comes to local government. When it comes to my South African brothers and sisters, the coming elections will be 2026 for local government, if I'm not mistaken. I would say if you are living in Johannesburg, vote for Democratic Alliance. If you are living in Durban, Pretoria, Tshwane, vote Democratic Alliance. If you are living in Nelson Mandela Bay, East London, Umtata, vote for the Democratic Alliance. But then when it comes to national government elections, do not vote for those idiots. Please don't do it. Do not do it. Do not make the mistake of voting for them. I'll cover why another day. Yeah, but I'm thinking that South Africans now are smart enough to know that different scenarios and different circumstances might need different solutions. And in this particular instance, local government requires the Democratic Alliance. That's the best bet that you can get when it comes to local government. And because I said that right now what we need is national government investment, and also what we need is for voters to vote these scumbags of the ANC out of our municipalities, including the IFP, by the way, in KZN, and including, so I'm just saying that vote, I'm using the language of my very close friend of mine who normally calls them these scumbags. Vote these scumbags out. Yes, please vote these scumbags out. And with that said, and the reason why I'm focusing on the issue of infrastructure, other than the fact that it supports the economy, it supports the experience of the residents and the businesses in order for us to do business, because you can't run a business without water. If you're running a restaurant, if you're running anything, you can't run it without water. I'm focusing on it because infrastructure is one sector that has an opportunity of employing a lot of people, including skilled workers. It turns out actually that infrastructure jobs are the only public sector jobs, if I'm excluding doctors, are the only public sector jobs that require highly skilled workers, engineers and scientists. So then that our engineers and scientists can actually work in the public sector only if they get job in infrastructure. That's the only rational place where you can get employment of highly skilled and scarce and sought after skills like engineers and scientists. As it turns out, I have friends of mine who I studied with at the University of Cape Town who were in my class, studied chemical engineering, whose actually area of specialty is water treatment. One studied chemical engineering, another studied civil engineering and did a master's in chemical engineering, because when it comes to water treatment, the specialties that often generally work in that area are civil engineering and chemical engineering. And if you study water treatment further in graduate studies like master's and PhD level, that is mostly in the chemical engineering department. But a lot of the undergraduate water treatment courses would be split between civil engineering and chemical engineering. So I'm just saying that I do have friends who are working in the public space who studied chemical engineering and who studied civil engineering, and I would actually put them in charge of these infrastructure projects spent for water refurbishment of this water system without even losing a sweat, because I know that they are competent, they are well trained, they have been rigorously trained by some of the best experts in the world. Yeah, and so with that said, now we're coming to the issue of saying, so now assuming that the issues that I discussed in the previous video of episode 115 of problems with leaks and an unmaintained system, assuming that those problems have been fixed, assuming that the leaks have been closed, or those leaks that happen like periodically are being fixed timeless fashion, we are not losing water at the rate that we are losing water now, where for every R1 that the city of Johannesburg is spending to acquire water, 40 cents of that goes to leaks, which means that every rand that the end user, the residents of Johannesburg spend to pay for water with the city of Cape Town, 40 cents of that the resident pays for goes to waste. Similar situation with Durban, where 50 cents of every rand that the city spend on water goes to waste because of leaks, which directly goes to the resident and the end user, the businesses, the business owners. Yeah, so I'm saying that once the system has been fixed, once we've done a system-wide fix, and the system is functioning as it should be, then there are certain things that will have to be done on the supply side, which I already said in the video before. And on the supply side would be already, some people have already said that some of the conflicts of the future will be due to access to water. There are challenges that we are facing with regards to availability of drinkable and usable water in terms of usability in a home or in a restaurant, for instance. So there are challenges there, and South Africa is actually becoming more and more dry. And we're saying dry, we talk about with regards to having readily available surface water. And the problem with that is that it makes our water supply situation unstable. Cape Town has had this situation in 2017 and 2018, and they've put some interventions in place to fix that problem. But to have that problem fixed in a system-wide fashion, one will have to start building desalination plants. These are very, very critical. And I would say that maybe large desalination plants would be required in South Africa, at least for the next 30 years. And then maybe 50 years from now, we can look into, do we need another? And the most amazing thing about living on Earth is that 70% of the world's surface is water, which is ocean water. And obviously, ocean water is undrinkable and it's unusable for most purposes, but we have the technology now to desalinate the water. And I would say, and also, and the most interesting thing about this thing is that it creates lots of jobs, high skilled and high paying jobs. As I've already said also in the past, that a lot of these infrastructure jobs that I speak of, they are not low skill and low paying jobs. In fact, when it comes to the jobs that I was talking about in video 112 and 113 in regards to nuclear power station and in regards to refining of petroleum products, there won't even be a single person in any of those plants or complexes who would earn anything less than, say, 8,000 Rand. And the people who would probably be earning 8,000 Rand would be the cleaners and maybe the security personnel. Everyone else will be earning at least around 12,000 Rand, and that would be the operators, which will be the majority of the staff will be the operators, which will earn around 12,000 to 18,000. And then the rest of the staff are the high skilled workers, which earn on average, between the engineers and the scientists earn on average between 30,000 and around, say, 80 to 100,000. This is per month, by the way. Yeah, so these are good jobs. These are very good jobs, because even for those who are unskilled and who did not go to university, I'm talking about like operators, they are actually earning more than what the average South African earns, which is around 6,000, 7,000. Because if you're earning around 12,000 to 18,000, depending on your experience as an operator, you are actually doing very well based if you're looking at based on your skills. So these are very good jobs. So that also goes to in terms of if we're constructing desalination plants. And I would say the first places where I would put a desalination plant, the first candidate would obviously be the Eastern Cape because of its high unemployment and its proximity to the ocean. And then I looked at what is the largest desalination plant that we have in the world, and I saw that it is actually the one that is in Saudi Arabia, which was constructed. The cost of construction was $7 million, and its water output per day is 1 million cubic meters per day. And its purification method is multi-stage flash distillation and reverse osmosis. My preference, obviously, would be to have a plant that uses reverse osmosis because it is less energy intensive compared to the multi-stage flash distillation process of purifying water. And the employees in that plant in Saudi Arabia, that plant employs 3,500 people. So if you build a large desalination plant in the Eastern Cape of this magnitude that employs 3,500 people, constructed it around the same, producing 1 million cubic meters of water per day, and you put it around between East London and Umtata, that will actually make a very big impact on the local economy, while also helping alleviate our water situation. And then I would say that the next desalination plant, I would say a similar plant, you maybe rather build it also around the KZN area. And I would say build it either around Potchefstroom area or around the Richards Bay area. Obviously, it has to be built on the coast. Yeah, and so either around Margate, Potchefstroom, or around Richards Bay in Bangeni side, which will also create 3,500 jobs. And all of these plans, by the way, when you say 3,500 jobs, we are not including the indirect jobs, which will often normally be double that, so around 7,000 indirect jobs. So that will be something that will be actually be incredible, and it will also add another 1 million cubic meters of water per day into the KZN system. And then what that will do on the side of water supply is that it would actually give relief to the nation with regards to the surface water that we have, groundwater, which can then be redirected to another sector that is labor intensive, which is agriculture, which I have not spoken about in great detail, but I will speak about in the future, because South Africa needs to stop messing around when it comes to agriculture. Agriculture is very, very, very important because of its potential to absorb lots of semi-skilled and unskilled people into the job market, including skilled workers, by the way. So every leading economy in the world employs millions of people, of their own people, into the agricultural space. Like, for instance, if I use the United States of America, for instance, 7 million people in the US are employed by the agricultural space. That is more people than they are employed in South Africa right now, or pretty much around about the same amount of people. 7 million people are employed by agriculture, by farms. Yeah, but okay, I'm not talking about agriculture right now, but as you can see, it is a very, very important sector when it comes to job creation, but also when it comes to the GDP growth, which we'll talk about another day. It's important for us today because over 80% of the water consumption in the country goes to agriculture. So if we're building, yeah, I guess most of you probably didn't know about these things. Yeah. How do I know? Oh, guys, I have been cursed with this thing of just, I read stuff, man. Like, I read because, but also at some stage, I wanted to start a farming operation in South Africa. So when I'm researching a venture, I normally pour myself into copious amounts of research and data and information that I need, so that I can actually know everything that I need to know in regards to that space, which is also, this is to say, I know a lot about the agricultural sector, but that's a story for another day. But I'm saying 75 to 80% of the water consumption in the country goes to agriculture. So if we can build these two desalination plants, one in the Eastern Cape on the coast, somewhere between East London and Umtata, and one in KZN, somewhere maybe in Potchefstroom or maybe in Richards Bay, would add around collectively 2 million cubic meters per day of water, and will collectively add, okay, let's just say 7,000 direct jobs, both of them, and then 14,000 more of indirect jobs. That would actually be incredible, because when you look at that, I wouldn't be surprised if the Western Cape also built their own desalination plant. Listen, the Western Cape is sort of the model child when it comes to South Africa. I'm sorry to put it like that for people who hate the Democratic Alliance. No, they are doing a great job. Some people would say, no, they're not doing a great job because people in Khayelitsha and in Delta and in Gugulethu are poor, and they are still poor, or Mitchell's Plain or whatever. But the same can be said about the people who are in poor communities in your areas where the Democratic Alliance is not governing. Like, for instance, in Johannesburg, in Diepsloot, in Alex, in many of these areas, Orange Farm, people are very, very, very poor, like Tembisa. So if you want to to discredit what the Western Cape government does right by pointing at the existence of very poor people in the Cape Flats, then how about your government in Gauteng that is not doing anything right, and you have millions more of poor people in these places, in Alexandra, the amount of people who are in Alexandra, in Diepsloot, in Orange Farm, like it's actually quite incredible. Like in some of these, in Davidton, in Vosloorus, even in Soweto, even though Soweto is more of a middle class township, but there's a lot of poor people there too. Yeah, so you can't judge them based on that because you also have the same thing. I'm just saying that I expect that those guys would build a desalination plant at some stage. And also what that would do is that it would relieve the pressure that their dams have to supplying their large cities like Cape Town, Paarl, Stellenbosch with water, because then the water that are in their dams can then be redirected to agricultural use, and that's very very important. Like it's I think for us, if South Africa can create 1 million agricultural jobs in the next 10 years, that would actually be very 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 impressive. Yeah, but the important point here is to say, once you fix the water infrastructure system in our cities, then build these desalination plants, which will be manned and staffed by skilled workers, mostly engineers and scientists. Yeah, so if you've watched the videos that I've been making in the past, the past few videos, you can see that there is a method, um, to this madness that I'm going through. There is a particular method. My policy stances are actually very methodic and systematic, in such a way that everything affects everything. That you have to do things in a very methodic way if you want to create jobs and if you want to grow the economy. Yeah, so that's very important. And I'm saying that, so this is the last video that I'm making with regards to water infrastructure. Build desalination plants, staff your water treatment facilities with competent and qualified people, engineers mostly, and scientists, and fix the infrastructure. Have a competent maintenance team that's gonna continuously be maintaining the system, because all of these systems, they need continuous maintenance. So you need people who are competent on reliability and maintenance, which is an area that I've dabbled in the past. I've actually quite enjoyed a bit in my consulting with some clients in the mining space. Yeah, so you need people who are very well versed on the issues of reliability, quality, reliability, and maintenance when it comes to this issue of infrastructure, water infrastructure, which need to be constantly being maintained, constantly being managed, so that you can extract the maximum amount of value for it as possible throughout its expected lifespan. Yeah. So, but with that being said, just let me know what you think about the suggestion of building desalination plants, which will create thousands, 14,000, close to 20,000 jobs, high skilled jobs, and I think everything that I've discussed now up until now put together would add something around close to 200,000 jobs. 200,000 jobs. And these jobs are well paying, high skilled jobs. It's actually quite good. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll see you on the next one. I'm going to discuss some other infrastructure issues in the next videos. I just need to decide which infrastructure topic that I need to discuss also, and the reason why I'm discussing infrastructure, as I said, is because of how much it creates jobs and also how much it adds to to GDP growth. Cool, folks. See you on the other side. Cheers.